don't worry, we're working on the whole whether it's minimum wage or living wage thing. The organized labor has said we're giving you to the end of May to sign it into law, the new minimum wage, whether it's minimum wage or living wage, whatever the case is. We're giving you till the end of May, the 31st of May, to sign it into law. The president is saying, don't worry about it. Your days of cleaning tears are over, because we're working on it, and very soon we're going to announce it, and lowest amount of money that should be paid a worker in a country. But the living wage is the amount of money that should be paid to an individual or a family in order to avoid them being poor, or in order to avoid them going into poverty. So the 615,000 naira is not the lowest amount of money that should be paid an individual. That's 650,000 naira that's been proposed by the organized labor, but the amount of money that should be paid every worker to make sure that even if there is inflation in the next 5 years, they would not run into poverty. That is what the 615,000 naira living wage being proposed by the organized labor is talking about. So even if we pay 615,000 naira this month, next month, whatever, even if there's an inflation in which, according to the TUC, if the 615,000 naira is being paid, there won't be an inflation. Even the guest that we had yesterday, Apostle Samuel Joshua, he is a management consultant. He mentioned that if calculations are being done right, paying an increase in the minimum wage will not cause an inflation. And that was the same explanation that we got from the TUC president, Festus Osifo. Paying the 615,000 naira, according to these people, will not cause an inflation. So if you pay, I'm speaking on the side of the labor now, if you pay the 615,000 naira to workers, even if there is an inflation that is not caused by the increase in minimum wage, something else, or food inflation, in the next whatever years, there won't be any need to increase it, because that 615,000 naira will be enough to take a worker home. So that's basically what the whole living wage, minimum wage is all about. So it's not the lowest amount, but it is the amount of money that should be paid an individual to avoid poverty. That's the whole point of the 615,000 naira. They during the meeting defended the 615,000 naira, why it's so high and all of that. And for some people that are even saying that 615,000 naira is even too small, considering if you have to buy a bag of rice and all of that. But to be fair, so they're pushing for it, and they're saying that the government should announce a new, or not even, because it's not an announcement, it's a law. So pass into law the new minimum wage or the new living wage, so that workers can breathe. I haven't had power supply for close to a month now. Something vandals vandalize our transformer and all of that, and we keep hearing stories, one story after another, for the past 1 month. I don't think it's 3 weeks plus, been hearing different stories and all of that. So every day in the estate we get to hear sounds of generator and all of that. Recently, the sounds of generator has actually dropped. People can no longer afford fuel. People can no longer afford it. They would just prefer to stay in darkness. I took a walk last night, and basically, people were in the utter darkness. They did not, want to buy fuel, or even if they are buying it, just to probably charge their phones or to power up their refrigerators for like an hour, and then that's it. They can no longer afford it, and we're no longer having light. So where are we headed as a country, or even as an estate? Anyway, I'm laughing, but it's not a funny thing, because I'm part of it. Alright, agric imports gulp 12 trillion naira despite 9-year anchor borrowers scheme. Lagos uncovers under-bridge apartment where tenants pay 250,000 naira rent. Safe school initiative to cover off campus hotels, commander. School mourns 14-year-old British Nigerian killed in London sword attack. The last headline says federal government restricts Lagos bridges sand miners licenses. These are the headlines that made it to the Punch newspaper this morning. Before we go on to the Vanguard newspaper, if you're just joining us, this is today's papers, and we're taking a look at the front pages of the newspapers. Now, I would like to hear from you later on the program because I'll be throwing open the phone lines. Later on, the phone lines are already buzzing later on the program, and then the WhatsApp lines are open. You could also follow us on our Facebook page. We're currently streaming live on Facebook. Do want to drop a comment on the live feed, and I'll definitely be reading out the comments for you, or for all of us. All right, it's 8:15 this morning, and we have about 15 minutes left before we wrap things up on this program. All right, moving on to the Vanguard newspaper before we open the phone lines. We have 1.5 billion liters of petrol to last 30 days coming from the reps. Nasima President Oye to speak at Vanguard Economic Summit. Insecurity, Matawale urges US to share intel on terrorism banditry. May Day, governors promise better working conditions, pay rise for workers. May Day, Labour gives federal government May 31st deadline on minimum wage. Banks close 2 million accounts over BVN, NI and others. Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway, federal government begins 275 billion naira compensation to property owners. Now that's it on the Vanguard newspaper. Let's take a look at The Guardian before we open the phone lines. The Guardian, Labour demands inflation-proof pay, frequent wage review. Minimum wage takes back seat in Kano, Kwara as NLC marks May Day. Telco losses, irregular levy remittance threaten NCC's 549 billion naira target. PDP chides Aida Tiwa for budgeting 5 billion naira to renovate daycare centers. Wow. Workers worry as federal government assures on May 1st a date for new minimum wage. Super Eagles, how to support indigenous coaches to grow, win laurels. Duty exchange rate fueling uncertainty, adjusted 28 times in 2024, the first quarter of 2024, says CPPE. PDP rallies aggrieved members, targets 2027 presidency, and lastly, 10 years after, the shame of Chibok lingers on government. These are the headlines that made it to the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. It's time to hear from you this morning. The phone lines are open and the phone numbers are 0803 085 7755 or 0809 066 6909. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, I'm standing to you.
Good morning to you. Welcome to the program. What's your name and where are you calling us from?
It's Apostle Kingfield of Kingfield. The people like this call Apostle Tico, right from Matanaport.
All right, welcome to the program.
I'm glad to join you this morning. Yes. About the headline this morning, about the one that said that a man paid 250,000 naira at the underbridge house. Yes. There's something that graphics to bear. But sometimes people may look at man like a suspect business that is doing it. No. Lagos is a land of many. The way Lagos is, I don't know where they can compare Lagos in other states in this Nigeria. People who don't go to Lagos may look like the man is not a fool. The man, maybe sometimes the man is doing business that he cannot transport far distance. Maybe that place is a location that his business will flow, understand me, so that he can do it. And because Lagos, one of the things that make people not be familiar with Lagos, many people will be done from Lagos. And still again, in Lagos, if one person has a house, understand me, to rent, they need to get 40,000 naira, agreement with 80,000 naira, paying 80,000 or 2 years.
Okay, so what I'm getting from you is that because it's Lagos, if they give you an apartment under bridge to pay 250,000 naira, you pay it.
The man is making the money here now. Maybe he's doing what we do.
Do you know this man personally? You know the man personally?
There's a business that people can do. People are selling parts under the bridge. People are selling restaurants under the bridge.
And you are aware that it's not just one person. There are tenants there. It's an apartment for rent. Like it's not just one house.
And there's making to be there, understand? And second again, please, I don't know why it is so in Lagos. If they rent their house, if the roof have a problem, maybe it's leaking, you call the landlord, you tell him, no more, you don't call me, it's not this like this, I don't know. Go and do, if you rent the vehicle from him, and then you come and friend the vehicle for long, will you maintain the vehicle? Why is it so big? In a part of state, if you rent the house, if the house leaks, the landlord will maintain. And there are many things happening in Lagos, which I don't know why it is so. That's one number. Call again, please, credit me about this compensation that paying 250 something billion. Let it be the again the money to people because it used to happen here. Last time we applied, we hear that inflation here, people do not pay their compensation, one thing the other about road. And not to pay only that compensation at the end of the day, they neglect that road. They don't bring that road from Lagos to California. They will not be happy about it. That's what I have to say.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we're still taking up some more calls, but let's call a spade, right? Just because it is Lagos doesn't mean that charging for an under-bridge apartment 250,000 naira is fair. Just because it is Lagos, let's be realistic. I understand that Lagos apartments can be funny. It can be, but it doesn't justify what's being done there. I saw a video of a really tiny apartment. Like, this is a really tiny apartment in Lekki. First of all, they already said, the agent said there's no clean water there. That's one. Number two, this is a really tiny apartment that they would have just done self-contained apartment with, but they divided that self-contained apartment into 2 rooms and 1 toilet and a parlor. This is a really tiny house. Like, you do 1, 2, you have entered another room. That's how tiny it is. It was 500,000 naira. We have another call. Let's take it. Hello, good morning. Good morning to you, Fasa. Welcome to the program. Same to you.
On minimum wage, I want to say I am not against the government paying 250,000. I think what's but my question now is children who are ready to pay the 215,000 naira at the minimum wage. Are they ready to even pay the 70,000 naira? Are they willing to pay the money? Because they should consider inflation. They should consider the inflation. Yes, because they really hard in Nigeria. They should consider the inflation rate, and they should not demand too much. For me, I want to say again that the 70,000 is like new for me at minimum wage. People should not demand too much. 215,000 is too much. So if you want to consider inflation, they should consider inflation rate. They should not demand too much.
But first of all, are you aware that they're saying that they have considered inflation and doing their plus and minus, their algebra and their arithmetics, they have realized that it's not going to cause any inflation? What I'm saying is that they said that they have done their calculations and their research and they have realized that it's not going to cause any inflation. Okay, you'd have to hear me over the radio set and not over a phone call. So I'm just rounding off with what I said earlier about the calling a spade. I don't know why Lagos landlords do that, but it should not be encouraged. Let the value of the house be the value of the house and not extorted just because it's a Lagos house. It shouldn't be so. It shouldn't be encouraged. Let it be that the house that you find in Akwa Ibom, the same thing that you see there here is same thing that you see there, not just because it's Lagos State and people want to move over to Lagos State. Anyway, about what Fessa said, 615,000 naira, according to them, will not cause inflation. I don't know the maths that they put together. I'm just saying what the TUC president said. I'm not saying that me too, I did my research, or I'm not saying that. I'm just relaying the message. Okay, we had another call, and then we lost it. So that's basically what they're saying. The 70,000 naira, and when you say, are they willing to, is the government willing to increase the minimum wage? It's actually a law that after 5 years, they should review the minimum wage. Let's take this call. Hello, good morning. All right. Welcome back.
Please, about the issue of Lagos. Things at Lagos are cheap. a house in Lagos is very expensive.
Why is it like that?
You can't walk into landlord to see landlord that has direct access. You still have the rent. If you go to agent, 40,000, 50,000, should ask anybody. An agreement fee, 80,000. Talking about other things, 2 years, they don't follow 1 year. At Lagos, please, apart from that, here, in our studio here, memory, because one of our best studios, yes, I love them so much. Please, I want to know the hour they used to call for area report because we have many government here in our community. Uncompleted roads are here in Agana for this year. Our primary school has not been completed. And even among the whole primary school, they have been facing all the primary school, but we don't have them in our primary school. In Agana for along Attack Road, all the primary school have said, I don't know what happened. I want to know the area report hour so that I will be calling, so that I can visit them because they need to visit them very much.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so about area reports, it's something that's in the works. So once something is done about it, like a time is allotted to it, then we'll definitely announce it and you hear us talking about it. But for now, it's on a hold. We'll let you know when area report is back on Memories 96.5. So it's something we used to do, so it will definitely be back, and you definitely know what time it will be because I'll let you in on it. All right, so as we're going through the headlines on the papers, we just finished the Guardian newspaper. We're about to move to the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. PDP condemns tariff, petrol price increases, warns workers to resist anti-people tendencies. CBN adjusted exchange rate 28 times in the first quarter of 2024, coming from CPPE. Says uncertainty pervading Nigeria's trade. Labour to federal government. Announce new minimum wage before the 31st of May or risk industrial disharmony. New wage will take effect from the 1st of May when announced, federal government assures. Governor's pledge improved welfare for workers, promised to pay living wages. Mining areas record rise in out-of-school children, report. Ibadan chiefs meet Ladoja, seek Olubadan's speedy coronation. Bandits attack Kogi community, kill 3. Lagos Calabar Coastal Road, federal government pays 2.7 billion naira compensation. Affair on Thursday, 2024 Student Loans Act, discriminatory and unconstitutional, is at the headlines of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Let's take the last paper before we call it a wrap on this segment of the morning ride, and that is the Nation newspaper. Payment of 2.75 billion naira to property owners on Lagos Calabar Road begins. Jubilation as Transportation Minister flags off Port Harcourt-Aba train service. 17 northbound passengers burnt to death in Enugu bus crash. Oh my God. Federal government promises living wage as NLC demands 615,000 naira minimum wage payment to be backdated to April. TUC issues ultimatum to electricity tariff hike. Who said what? Okay, these are details on that. The federal government promises living wages. NLC demands 615,000 naira. The president said wage issues shall be resolved soon, and I assure you that your days of worrying are over. This government is open to not just a minimum wage but a living wage. Labour is saying all the parties in the tripartite process are well represented and their engagement has been robust. We have placed on our demand of 615,000 naira only before our social partners while we await their offer. And Shomola is saying the NLC should make realistic and affordable demand. It should not just center on minimum wage. It must engage the government in appropriate industrial policies. And that's exactly what my analyst said yesterday, Apostle Joshua Samuel. It shouldn't be, centered on only the money, you increase the money, but how about how we can produce more in the country? How about that, the labor? Okay, the last headline says family head seeks speedy Olubadan coronation at meeting with Ladoja. Now, these are the headlines that made it to the front pages of various newspapers this morning, and at this point we have to call it a wrap because we're completely out of time. Thank you so much for listening to the program. Today's Papers is in about 20 seconds from now, from the archives will start.